Hi there, my name is Vanilli. If you're new here, welcome. I'm a Twitch streamer and content creator who loves horror and all things scary. Today, I'm starting something I like to call VANI Never Sleeps, where I read Reddit no-sleep stories I find cool and interesting. I've been on Reddit no-sleep since 2015, so there's a lot of stories that I think aren't necessarily underrated, but I definitely think should be shared with the internet more often. For this first episode, I simply looked up underrated no-sleep stories on Google, read through a few, and picked a few that I thought were pretty cool hidden gems that I had never read before. If you have any stories you'd like me to read, feel free to comment them below so I can check them out next time. You never know, I might have already read them and they might be on my list to share with everyone. So what I did is I went on Reddit, obviously, and I kind of searched for like hidden gems in Reddit no sleep, and I looked at a few of those, and that's what I'm going to be reading today. I haven't read either of these completely all the way through. I have two of them, but I'm going to kind of read them, give my opinion on them, and then upload this so other people can hear it and go from there. I'm planning on doing probably, I don't want to say once a week, probably every other week, maybe once a month. I have a lot of other stuff I'm planning on doing. I have the gym vlog, and then I also have just like normal VODs from my streams. We'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. If this is something you like watching, definitely make sure to let me know. And if you have any recommendations, you can leave them down below. The first one that I found in the hidden gems post is called Things That Happen in Small Town America That Make Me Very Afraid. And this one I can kind of relate to because I'm from a small town, pretty small actually. And it kind of like, the title catches me and it kind of freaks me out because there are weird things that happen in small town America. The Reddit no sleep kind of takes it to another level. So this is by Tender Green on Reddit. It's from 5 years ago, and name is Jonah Gabriel. He has a lot of other stories as well, so maybe I'll check some of those out too. But this one is Things That Happen in Small Town America That Make Me Very Afraid. The man wearing my face was sitting at the bus stop bench reading a book. I live in the Midwest United States, in an in-between town. I moved here about 5 years back, which makes me one of the few people to move in and not out in the last decade. We're pretty small, too small for most chain restaurants, the kind of town where you got your McDonald's and all but no Applebee's. But we're big enough that you don't really know the people around you so well. The girl at the counter of the coffee place knows my name and my usual order, but not much else. We're too out of the way to be a pit stop on town on the way to the nearest city, but the county buses run through because people need to get to work. It's kind of like, so my town was pretty small. We didn't have any chains. We had a McDonald's. We didn't have any buses. I mean, school buses. But we didn't have any city buses, and it was definitely a pit stop town. It's not like it was not out of the way. It was right off the highway. Oh, was that too much detail about the local food scene? I don't know. I think it's important. I want you to understand. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Anyway, I was at a coffee place when I saw him. I work at an auto repair shop a bit out of town, and I'm an insomniac, so on my lunch break I get a coffee just about every day so I can make it to the end of my shift. Jake teases me about it. I'm kind of a big, grimy dude, and I get the girliest drinks. Sue me for being a sweet tooth. No, I get it. So I'm standing by the window waiting for my order. At first I didn't think anything really beyond just, oh, that's a new face, but my eyes linger and I get that prickly sensation all over, like my brain twigging me that something's wrong. I only ever felt it so strong a couple of times before in my life. Once when I was out deer hunting with my dad and we saw a coyote who we realized in a minute was rabid come limping towards us. The other was at trade school and I saw some fuckhead posted up by my truck and I just knew he was waiting for me. The first thing I could recognize was a haircut, then height, the general shape of his face. He was at a distance and hard to make out, and I might not have even noticed if my subconscious hadn't hooked him. I heard someone say that you've never seen your face, just pictures and reflections, but I have seen it, I guess. It was sort of like the first time you see a video of yourself, distorted compared to what you see in the mirror. The barista broke my attention to give me my coffee, and I forgot about him for a minute before I walked out to get to my truck. I was just across the street from him and I looked at him and fuck, those were my eyes. He even dressed like me. Not like he was in the exact same clothes, but the kind of nondescript thing that I usually wear. Flannel over denim, work boots. His clothes were cleaner than mine usually looked. By this point, I was full on staring, coffee hot in my hand. And he looked up, made eye contact. He smiled just a bit. He waved awkwardly. His smile went to his eyes, like a really earnest smile that somehow made my stomach seize up. Just like that, he went back to his book. Coming out of this, I was woozy, about to stumble every step back to my truck. I never locked the doors, but I did now. It sounds fucking ridiculous in hindsight, especially typing it, but it's hard to explain how it felt to see him. Practically like I was leaving my own body. My skin was clammy and a little numb. I don't know. If I saw someone who literally was just like me at a bus stop and they just looked at me and acknowledged that they were me, I think I would also be a little bit freaked out. I don't know, I've never actually met someone who looks like me, but I've been told plenty of times, just like in this city that I live in now, like, oh, you look exactly like my friend. I don't know who this person is. I don't even know their name. But apparently there's someone here that looks exactly like me, and I feel like if I ever saw them, I wouldn't even recognize it. To my credit, as much of a baby as I was, I pushed through the rest of the day like normal. Had my coffee, went back for my lunch break. Somebody in town's brakes were wearing thin. Somebody else had junked up their transmission. Ordinary day. The whole time though, in the back of my head, I was still there on the sidewalk, staring at the guy with my face. I slept worse than usual that night. I've had sleeping problems since I was a kid. Doctors said it was a routines thing. Any big change from my normal day, I can barely get a wink in. When Jake first moved in, I got so ornery from the sleep deprivation that we wound up fighting just about every day until I started sleeping on the couch. I stayed up the whole night just staring at the computer. I'd gone on some childish Google rabbit hole on doppelgangers and found nothing that seemed helpful. At some point, I stopped reading and my eyes just glazed over, and it was morning. He's freaking out. I need a twink. Don't do my apple juice. First half of my shift was hell until I hit my second win. I went to the coffee shop and the dizziness started to set in on the drive over. I know I should blame the fact that I was running on empty, but I still can't help thinking maybe it was because of him. He was there in the same spot when I pulled up. I wouldn't look directly at him, just rushed through to get in the store. Even about 10 yards off, it was like he was a physical presence. Like he might as well have been right up in my ear. I could feel his breaths, slow and even, puffing on the back of my neck. I shook the entire time I was getting my drink. Coffee girl seemed a bit nervy too. She dropped my change onto the counter and didn't smile at me, which just made me more unsettled. She was normally really perky, even if it was just fake customer service bullshit. Missing it made the atmosphere all that much more alien. When things get bad, I'm the kind of guy who just fades out into his own head. It's a skill, like a bad one, obviously, but a well fucking practiced skill. I let myself recede back into my skull waiting for my drink. Thought about the work I had to get to at the shop. Sleep deprivation made zoning out even easier, up until I left the shop, that is. I didn't even look at him. Maybe it was because I was moving on autopilot and so deep into my nothing place, but I was absolutely punched with the sensation as I got it to the outdoor bistro seating. The feeling of the paper against my fingertips as I turned the page, a foggy half image of black text on creamy white. I full body rocked to a stop and caught myself. Coffee spilled on my hand. It was boiling hot and I could barely. Ow. So when he said, thought about the work I had to get into the shop, sleep deprivation, okay, so that's his workshop, and then he thought about it up until he left the coffee shop. And then, I don't know, he said he went outside to sit. I don't know, that confused me. That part confused me. Okay. There he was, reading his fucking book without a care in the world, smiling with my mouth. He had a shadow of stubble. I hadn't shaved the night before. My first thought was that it felt like he tried to rip the soul out of my body. I couldn't move away. I had to know what was wrong with him, or wrong with me. I sat down and didn't take a sip of my coffee, just stared. He didn't feel me looking at him today, or he pretended not to, but at least when I watched him, I didn't get any more of whatever the fuck that had been. The longer I looked, it was weird. I thought I could see things around him, but not really see them. It was a subtle haze, like heat shimmer, all around him, and as I looked, I could almost see it forming this membrane stretching out in every direction, this clear web. A thick fucking tendril of it stretched between me and him, almost present and iridescent and real the harder I stared. If I had the balls, I could have reached out and touched it. After a little while, I realized that other people were starting to notice him. They'd stop, double take, then stand there gawking at him. It seemed weird at first, until I realized, of course they'd be freaked out. I was sitting right there across the street. I mean, you'd be startled to see two of your neighbor one day, right? Even comforting myself that way, it didn't seem quite right. Like, shit, they didn't know me that well. I could have had a twin or something, but when he lifted his head up out of his book and smiled at them, gave a little wave to whoever he'd caught staring, they'd act like he punched them. From an outsider's perspective, it was somehow, I don't know, embarrassing. I must have looked that dumb yesterday. He sat there for almost an hour with his book, and then the bus came. I could see him pay with the change, laugh a bit at something the bus driver said, and then he escaped down the road towards civilization. I went and threw up in the garbage can, and I had broken out in a cold sweat, so I called into work and said I thought I had food poisoning. I got chewed out for taking off, but like, what were they gonna do? Bring me in? Have me puke on people's cars? My boss can be such a dick. Real. That was a real life. I texted Jake on the way home and crawled into bed. He waited for me to wake up on my own even after he got to the house, and he brought a big thing of baked mac and cheese into bed with him for us to share. Homemade, not that Velveeta shit. God, I love him so much. And he asks, "You feeling better now, Ringo?" My parents named me Harrison after the Beatle. He calls me Ringo when he thinks he's being cute. I told him yes, I was. He teased me for staying up all night online reading scary stories or whatever. I said I stay up all night all the time and never throw up over it. Well, that's because I must be getting old. My elderly body wasn't taking kindly to how I treat it no more. I pinched him on the arm. We chatted about other things, God knows what. He can talk for hours without me having to say a word. It's nice. I'm pretty much quiet and I don't know this word. Recalcitrant? Okay, by nature, and so was my dad. It's nice having someone who could make you laugh and make you feel like a human being. But he said something after we'd flicked on the news that made me feel sick all over again. Oh, and I heard the craziest shit from Susie today when she came into the office. I only just barely heard her the first time. She was up at the nurse's station, you know, and I'm trying to read some kids chart, and I nearly put it down and went over and asked if she needed to go to a hospital or a fucking psych ward. But I asked nicely later, and she said, baby, guess what she said? I was half paying attention at this point, splitting my ears between him and the tomorrow's weather report. She's pregnant? He threw back his head and laughed. That'd be harder to believe than what she actually said now that you mention it. But she was like adamant that some woman was trying to steal her soul. Oh, wait a second. Wait a sec. Cold rushed over me and I muted the weather. She what? Yeah, I don't think she was religious or anything, but no. He stopped and looked at me, all bright and concerned. What did she say? Harry, you okay? You've been acting funny all day. Jacob, please. He sighed, kind of frustrated now. I don't know. She just said when she was in town yesterday before her shift, she passed by this woman who tried to rip the soul out of her body. I don't know what she means. It's just Susie being a crackhead. I squeezed the remote and almost broke the damn thing. There were more of them. More doppelganger things. Maybe they were feeling the whole town out slowly, resident by resident, until they found what they needed. She's not crazy. I know what she means. He squinted at me. This was getting him more agitated. Well, what the fuck does that mean? It dawned on me that I couldn't possibly explain what I had been seeing without sounding like an insane person to my licensed medical professional spouse. I made a half-assed attempt, mostly vague and avoidant, before I asked him if he'd let me drive him into town before work. He agreed, probably because he was planning on taking me into the seeing clinic, and maybe he wanted to get a coffee. I don't know. So I brought him there, and the stranger was there, familiar as ever in his same old spot. The moment I laid eyes on him, face buried in his book, I could feel him dig into me. Jake stiffened up like a corpse by my side. His hand tried to grab for me, but I was already out the door and making a beeline for the man with my face. I barely even waited for traffic. I was so hopped up on being right and on being proven, on knowing I wasn't going crazy. At that point, even all evidence to the contrary, I was half sure that Jake wouldn't see him at all. The closer I got to the guy, shoulders up and tight, the stronger the pull was. I put everything I had into staying clear-headed and ignoring the ghost images of words on paper. I almost got hit by a car for my troubles. People were already staring at him, but as I approached, some of their eyes turned onto me too. I could feel them, like claws and arrows, like the way that he pulled at me. I stopped a few feet away from him and squared my shoulders. Hey. He sat up and looked straight at me. The air around him shimmered. It was that web, all leading back to him like some kind of spider. For a second, I could see the cord between me and him, and it was as thick as my wrist, twice what it was yesterday. Harry, right? I asked, looking down at me. He smiled and shook his head. No, son, I think you got me mixed up with someone else. He pointed at the book in my hands. My knuckles had gone white, gripping so tight onto it. Can I see that for a minute? Before I could nod, it was his book, or shake my head. Hadn't I been in the middle of reading it? My hands were empty, one by my side, the other aimed down in a casual point to the book in the stranger's lap. The next thing I noticed is the air had been pulled right out from my lungs. Breathing in was like breathing fire for the first second, and I grabbed my chest before I caught my breath, rocked with dizziness and pain in my chest. I would have sworn I was having a heart attack. You ought to be more careful, Harrison. You could get a real hurt by pulling a stunt like that. He sounded sincere, was the sickest part of it to me at the time. I was so angry I was shaking with it, was sure I would swing on him at any moment. Don't you dare give me that. He sighed. The whole time, he never got angry or raised his voice. Well, hey, don't shoot the messenger. You're the one going around looking into things that aren't your business, aren't you? Not my business? You came into my fucking town where I live and you tell me it's not my business. I haven't done anything. Whose face are you wearing then? He reached up and touched my face, his own face, the edge of our stubble. I don't want any trouble. Well, tell your friend. I don't have any friends, Harrison. Not in this town, less ways. He gave me a long, slow blink and looked me up and down. My skin crawled like a ripple tracking with the movement of his gaze. He smiled. I'm just passing through. he said with my voice. Don't pay me any mind. What the fuck do you? I just try not to think about it. You can't go through your life trying to understand everything that happens to you. His smile all of a sudden got real damn sad. I felt the ache in it. I remembered the times I'd smiled like that. I couldn't think of anything to say to him, and he could tell I was struggling because he lifted his book up like he wanted me to leave him to it. Crime and punishment. I pressed my hand to my chest where the tightness was turning into a proper knot. I'll be gone after tomorrow, he assured me, turning his eyes down to the page. Oh, I don't understand. He's like, you think he's connected to everyone? I should have told him to get out of town today if he knew what was good for him. Hell, I should have chased him out myself, but I just rubbed myself away. The more I walked, I could feel the hooks under my skin pop off and disappear with the tight feeling starting to fade. I got into the car and turned to Jake. Tears were pouring down his face. His hands were clasped over his mouth trying to catch the sobs, but I'd never seen him cry like that. I started fussing instantly, but he was crying too hard to speak. I asked if he needed to take off the rest of the day, and he nodded. We could pretend he'd picked up a stomach bug from me yesterday. He cried for hours, just uncontrollable. To this day, he won't tell me exactly what happened to him while I was talking to the stranger. I kind of have an idea. I don't like to think about it. The one thing he did tell me was that the man had his face. That's when I knew. Yeah, it's like, I think that he had the same face as everyone, and he was like terrorizing everyone. I went back the next day as early as I could, and sure enough, the man with our faces was there. The air was thick like the humidity just before a big storm. He didn't seem to notice. All the nice people whose routines had disrupted were stock still, staring at him, and I wanted more than anything to shout for him to get out of there. What the hell kind of game was he playing? Didn't he know this shit was dangerous? And didn't he care about? But anyway, I couldn't get my voice up over the thick silence sliding down my throat. I wasn't the only one. Nobody was willing to make the first move. Then Jeff, the old man who runs the liquor store, came up behind the stranger with the driver he keeps behind the counter for security. He sat up a little. He knew the old man was behind him, and he didn't even turn around. The metal bulb smacked against his shoulder and keeled him over right off the bench. I rolled with the blow. His book fell, and I never saw it again after, because in that moment, everything turned into chaos. A little under a dozen people rushed for him. I'm not oversensitive or hysterical or what the fuck ever. I swear on God that I could feel everything. I haven't asked anybody else if they felt it too. Steel-toed boots to the gut, dirt and asphalt, and the nice folks hate in your mouth. I don't know if it's worse if they couldn't or could. It's the kind of shit you only see in the real gritty nature docs, or when you spend a long time sitting still in a deer stand. When all the birds descend on one among them and rips its throat out, or a mama fox bashes her kit to death, it's not malicious, it's a survival instinct. But I've never believed for a second that the natural doesn't mean it can't be evil. And he looked up, made eye contact. His eyes were so big and bloodshot and scared, I could feel him pleading inside my head so loud, and I could feel the bruising and breaking like a phantom sensation under my skin. I just stood there. Somebody brought their foot down on the center of his face, and it made this horrible cracking sound, and that was when I finally looked away. That was when I stopped feeling it. There were a few more moments of scuffling before everyone stopped. He'd quit moving, and I think it made everyone realize all of a sudden what they were doing and where. After a while, someone had got a big sheet and draped him in it, staining it red everywhere. I don't know what they did with him after. They wrapped him up and moved him. The coffee shop owner got the hose he used for the flower boxes in his windows and sprayed down the street until the gore washed away. I watched my neighbors murder me. I haven't disguised myself before posting this. I could have spared the personal details and changed people's names. It'd be very consistent for a cowardly fuck like me, but I think the least I can do for us, me and him, is to be honest. I'm scared as hell every day. I never stopped thinking about the way his bones cracked, and his teeth came out, and his skin sloughed away where they'd beaten it to mashed potato. If you read this, if you're from my town, you know who I am, and I know who you are, and I think you deserve to be a little scared too. Yesterday, for just a minute, I thought I saw my boss flinch looking at me. He had this look of horror and rage, and when it happened, I knew him inside out. I saw myself, and I looked like him. Maybe sometimes, if you're that scared of seeing your reflection, that's your own fucking fault. Man, wow. Okay, so it wasn't just him. Like, everyone else also saw themselves, and they also like beat themselves to death, but like it was connected to him directly, and it only turned him into what he was. I don't know. So he like switched places with him. Oh, I wonder if, I think they wouldn't have actually beat him to death if they could all feel it. I wonder if only he could feel it, because the guy like took his soul or something, actually took his soul, and he was gonna take everyone's soul, but they killed him first. Wow. That was good. What's this guy's name again? Jonah Gabriel. 5 years ago. He still writes pretty regularly. The last one's from 25 days ago. Okay. I'm gonna do one more from this like list of suggestions, and then I'll link the suggestions down below, like the list that I used and then both of the stories. So the second one is called I signed up for a mail order bride service, but now they won't stop sending strange women to my house, which sounds kind of sus. It's by Daria Vasileva. I don't know how to say that. It's by Daria. It's peculiar underscore dar. Like peculiar, but peculiar. And this is also from 5 years ago. I think that list was from 5 years ago. 5 years ago was like 2019. Maybe that was like a really popular time for writing No Sleep. I don't know. I've been reading this since 2015. So, okay. I need to take drinks. This is I signed up for a mail order bride service, but now they won't stop sending strange women to my house. Now, before you judge me, let me explain a few things. I'm listening. I am a man in my late 40s just looking for some company. I already did things the way they're supposed to be done. Fell for a girl in college, married her, had kids, the whole lot. Lived the life of a perfectly average family man until the day I came home to find Nancy, my now ex-wife, screwing some random guy on our kitchen counter. The same counter she had me wipe down every night after I helped cook dinner for the last 25 years of my life. Damn. Okay, I get it. And I was still willing to work on it after that. I really was. Nancy, however, had other plans. So there I was, a divorced, middle-aged man eating TV dinners alone every night. My 2 daughters dropped by every week at first, then their visits trickled down to once a month, and now they were just so very busy with their extracurriculars and college entrance papers. No one needed me. No one wanted me. I was not in a great state of mind when I first searched that pathetic string of words. Countless websites popped up for those seeking live-in companions, aka mail order brides. Eastern European, Asian, and African girls all dying for me to bring them over to live the American dream. I didn't know where to start, how to choose. I went for the agency that bought an ad at the top of the search list. I feel like that might be the sketchiest one, like the one that's paying for advertising. That's probably the craziest one. It's That's not the smartest one. It was all pretty straightforward. They wanted me to sign up for a monthly subscription plan. For $20 a month, I could peruse thousands of profiles and video call lonely women who were just dying to meet a mature, successful man. Most of the women looked like prostitutes, dolled up and wearing skimpy dresses. Several uploaded suggestive videos of themselves pouting their lips. I could never choose someone like that, not with 2 teenage daughters. They would never forgive me. Maria from Kiev was different. She only had 2 plain photographs and a short description in her profile, but there was something authentic about her first message to me. Hello, I am Maria. I want get to know you better. The bad English didn't put me off. I was thinking it could actually be a good thing. Maybe I didn't want a woman who could use the power of language to put me down. I hit the request video call button right away, and we had our first call minutes after that. There wasn't much to see on the blurry, lagging video. Maria was a frail, 32-year-old woman with short curly hair and sad eyes. Something about her obvious malnourishment appealed to me. Western women didn't know what the hell they wanted in life. Nothing seemed to make them happy. Here was a woman who desperately needed food, a problem I could actually fix. A week later, I picked Maria up from the airport. There was something about her photos and our short video call that implied that she was uncomfortable in front of a camera. Now I saw that Maria was actually incredibly awkward in real life as well. She was the tiniest woman I had ever seen, stick-thin and dressed humbly in a frayed knitted sweater and oversized corduroy pants. Her face was skeletal, something the pictures and blurry webcam had failed to capture. Hello, I bellowed in my cheeriest voice. Welcome to the United States. Maria nodded once, darting a quick glance up at me before looking back down to her worn leather shoes. Do you have any luggage? Luggage? I'd had a week to look up some basic words in Maria's language. She shook her head no. This stumped me because obviously the woman needed clothes and other things I didn't have on hand. I hadn't thought about getting a bride from abroad would be so much like getting a pet. I would never adopt a puppy without buying it some food, a set of brushes, etc. Perhaps, I reasoned, I could ask my ex-wife to lend us some of my daughter's old things until I took Maria shopping. Their preteen clothes would probably fit. Maria didn't speak a word on the car ride over, and I didn't push her. She was probably experiencing some sort of culture shock. When we got home, I led her into the kitchen. I'd gone out of my way to roast a chicken for the occasion. I'd read several articles that claimed Slavic men rarely cooked or did chores, and that But women like Maria found it charming when a civilized Western gentleman cooked for them. Here we go, I beamed, taking the massive chicken out of the oven. I bet you're starving after your life. Flight. Maria's eyes grew wide at the sight of the roasted chicken, and she began sniffing the air eagerly. It was a little odd, but it pleased me to see her face come to life. I piled plenty of food on her plate and set it down on the table. Maria darted a glance at the food, and then back to me, tilting her head in anticipation. Well, dig in, I said, gesturing towards a seat at the table. I'll fix myself a plate too, if you don't mind. Haven't had anything that wasn't takeout in a while. I turned to the cabinets for only a second, but when I turned back, both Maria and the plate of food were missing. Maria? I cried out into my silent house. Maria, where'd you go? There was no reply, but I thought I heard a noise coming from my living room. The shock had worn off, and I was starting to feel some real dread creeping up my spine. A part of me just wanted to run out of the house and call the police, but that felt too excessive. I had to give Maria the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there was a cross-cultural explanation. Perhaps in Ukraine they only ate in their living rooms. That was probably it, I reasoned as I left my kitchen. It took me a few seconds to locate Maria's tiny frame behind the couch in the far corner of my living room. She had her back to me as she hunched over something on the ground. Based on the excessive guzzling noises, it was probably the missing plate of food. Maria from Kiev was barking mad. No, literally. She began barking and growling at me as I approached, her beady, expressionless eyes bulging as her fanged teeth chomped at the air, sending bits of chicken in my direction. Why is she a dog? That was it for me. I ran the hell out of my living room and up the stairs, locking myself away in the master bedroom. I got my phone and pulled up the agency's website. They had a phone number on the contacts page, and within minutes I was listening to a woman with a thick accent reciting a standard business greeting. Hello, my name is Daryl Shaw. I am one of your clients. I hesitated, trying to find the right words to describe my predicament. How can we help you? Woman asked. My bride, Maria, arrived this afternoon, but there's something very wrong with her. I don't know who to call for help. You're unhappy with bride Maria from Kiev, yes? It's not that I'm unhappy. I mean, it's not like that. I gripped my head. Jesus Christ, this wasn't a faulty blender complaint. There was an insane woman in my house. No worry, Mr. Shaw. We sent a new bride. The voice on the other end replied. What? No, I exclaimed, but the line was already dead. I stared at my phone, trying to figure out how I would explain this entire ordeal to the police or ambulance. Was Maria even legal? Did she have any documents? I hadn't seen any. That's when I heard scratching at my bedroom door. I froze on the bed, but the scratching grew louder, a low whine accompanying it. I was about to call 911 when the doorbell rang. Maria reacted right away, her barks growing distant as her tiny hands and feet scampered downstairs. Was it possible that the agency had called someone on my behalf? I looked outside my bedroom window. There were no patrol cars to be seen, but the cops could have come in an unmarked vehicle. Even if they weren't cops, even if it was just Gary, my idiot next door neighbor, I decided I could really use some company in dealing with the whole barking bride situation. I grabbed my revolver and headed downstairs. I was less terrified of Maria now that I was armed, so I braced myself for whatever messed up scene awaited me. Maria, however, was nowhere to be found when I reached the front door. The doorbell was still ringing. Hello, oh god. Ksenia from Vologda. A stunning tall blonde greeted me as soon as I opened the door. I'm here to replace Maria from Kiev, she added in a deep, sultry voice. I did not know what to say. My mind had turned off as the other, less frequently used body mechanisms kicked back into gear after years of stagnation. Ksenia smiled a dazzling, pearly white grin as she walked inside my house, shutting the door behind her. I did not think it possible for anyone to walk so gracefully in high heels, but her narrow hips were pure art as they wiggled around my hallway in a very short, skin-tight purple dress. Very nice big house, she purred. Big man, big house. What else is big? I could have forgotten all about the agency mix-up. Forgotten the current political climate, the stock market, year, my birthday, you name it. If Ksenia revealed herself to be a praying mantis after my own head, I would be okay with that too. At that moment, I was willing to do anything to get that gorgeous Russian girl in my bed. Uh-oh. Maria had other plans, however. She let me know by sneaking up behind me and biting down on my left ankle, hard. I screamed, stumbling back and tripping over the loose floorboard. I fell flat on my back, dropping the revolver on my way down to the floor. Ksenia picked it up and pointed the gun at Maria. You filthy suka, she screamed at Maria. No wonder he asked for a replacement, you freak. Maria snarled, lunging at Ksenia's feet, pulling off a stiletto, and scampering upstairs with the shoe wedged between her teeth. Not my Louis Vuittons, Ksenia shrieked before turning to me in a fury. How can you just lie there? Why do you not help me? My blonde bride demanded, waving the revolver around as she took off her other shoe. I'm sorry, I said, standing up slowly, my eyes glued to the gun. I fell because Maria bit my foot. What you do about her? You just let her stay? Ksenia demanded with her hands at her hips, a stiletto in one, my revolver in the other. Just then, the doorbell rang again. I didn't want to open it, but Ksenia moved swiftly. Hello, I'm Svetlana from Izhevsk. I don't know how to say that one. A petite, middle-aged woman stood in my doorway. Svetlana was dressed casually in jeans and a loose sweater, her auburn hair pulled back in a neat, conservative bun. My third bride's face was incredibly serious, and she surveyed the scene in front of her. The resemblance to my ex-wife was uncanny, and I had to double-take just to make sure it wasn't actually Nancy faking an accent. You complained about me to agency? Ksenia raised her voice and my gun again. You asked them to replace me with her? What? No, I understand. I exclaimed, backing away from both of the women, darting a glance behind me to make sure Maria wasn't lurking around, waiting to bite my other ankle. Svetlana spoke to Ksenia in a condescending, matronly sort of way as she stared at my second bride's exposed thighs. Ksenia mumbled something back, self-consciously pulling the skirt of her dress down. Svetlana said something else in brisk Russian, which caused Ksenia to hand over my revolver. Svetlana examined the gun before sliding it into one of her back pockets. The other one is upstairs, she asked us matter-of-factly, and we nodded in sheepish unison. Okay, I go get her. I grabbed my phone as soon as Svetlana disappeared from view. Enough was enough. The woman had my gun, for crying out loud. I was just about to unlock the screen and dial 911 when Ksenia put her delicate hand on mine, shaking her head. Her sky-blue eyes were wide with fear as she raised a finger to her lips before drawing close. Not time for that. We leave right now, she whispered. There was true urgency in her voice as she shuffled her bare feet on my welcome mat. Don't worry, I'll get the police, I whispered back, raising my phone. You not understand, she hissed as panic-stricken tears welled in her eyes. That woman not with agency. She not even woman. What? What did you say, Ksenia? Svetlana's cool tone sounded at the top of the stairs. I turned to see her calmly gliding down the steps. Maria trailed behind on all fours, keeping low to the ground and whimpering slightly. Svetlana stopped a short distance in front of us, her sharp eyes inspecting us with disdain. An urgent fear began to knot in my stomach. I stole a glance at Ksenia, who was all but cowering at my side, slowly edging her way towards the front door, bleeding in Russian. Maria howled, running to stand in front of me as though protecting me from Svetlana. I was too slow to reach. I was still trying to process the little things like Maria's barking, Ksenia's terrible English, and the goddamn resemblance between Nancy and Svetlana. I was half convinced I'd gone mad. He would have to understand. It was impossible for me to take any of it seriously. I really wish I had, though. Maybe then I could have prevented what came next. Svetlana moved fast, drawing and cocking my revolver, pushing me out of the way as she walked up to Ksenia and grabbed her long, bleached curls with force. The shot came seconds later as she blasted Ksenia's brains all over my hallway wall. Maria whimpered at my feet as Svetlana released her hold on my blonde bride's lifeless body. Ksenia's corpse fell to the floor with a thud. I feed now, Svetlana announced, giving me a small smile as she wiped her blood-stained hands on the side of her jeans. Please take the meal up to the bathroom. I eat there. What? I croaked, trying to remember how to speak. Take the body to the bathroom. Svetlana stepped back, turning aggressive. I go eat, then we discuss our marriage, okay? Well, I did what I was told. What else could I do? I had not known Ksenia long, but a deep sense of remorse washed over me as I carried her youth-limp body in my arms. She had been a gorgeous young woman who had died needlessly within half an hour of entering my house. I kept my eyes in front of me as I walked, not looking down to see the mangled mess that was once Ksenia's beautiful face. Svetlana watched me place the body in my small bathtub. She nodded appreciatively and licked her lips as she beckoned me to leave her alone in the bathroom. Do not even try calling the police or escaping, she threatened. I have not fed in a long time, and I'll be happy to make seconds of you. Her accent grew weaker with every new sentence, and I remembered Ksenia saying that whoever, or whatever Svetlana was, she wasn't actually a bride from the agency. Maria and I sat together in my kitchen, trying to ignore the sickening noises coming from the bathroom upstairs. I never knew that the sound of flesh tearing and crunching bone could be so loud. I felt like I had no options in the matter. I could call for help and risk dying, or I could face Svetlana and, what, also risk dying? I burst into sobs then, fear and misery washing over me as mucus spilled from my face. Maria rushed over, nosing her way into my arms and onto my lap. She was so small and light, I had to stop her from licking my hands and face, though it was a little too much. Still, I appreciated the comfort. The doorbell rang. I hesitated, wanting to see if that thing that claimed to be Svetlana from Izhevsk, don't know, would react. But the feeding noises continued, so I decided to take a chance to see who was at the door. You're probably thinking it was another bride, but no, it was actually my next door neighbor, Gary. I'd never been so happy to see that stupid pudgy face of his in my life. Hey Daryl, Gary beamed, lifting a six-pack of Stellas in the air. What do you say, bud? How about us two lonely bastards watch the game? What game? I asked, trying to figure out if I could get Gary to call for help without Svetlana finding out. Does it matter? He laughed. There's always some game on, isn't there? Oh, and who's this? Hello, ladies. Turned around to see Maria and Svetlana standing behind me. Svetlana wore the same sweater and jeans as before, only they appeared spotlessly clean. How had she gotten rid of Ksenia's blood? Daryl, the old dog, aren't you going to introduce us? Gary demanded, smoothing the 3 strands of hair that covered his bald spot. Svetlana, Maria, this is my neighbor and friend, Gary, I said, not knowing what else to say or do. Gary, this is Maria from Kiev, my, fiance, and Svetlana. Svetlana from Izhevsk, Russia. The thing woman flashed Gary some teeth as she reached out a hand. Maria's cousin. Ah, very nice, Gary said, taking Svetlana's hand in his, hesitating for a moment, then planting a sloppy kiss on it. Well, are you going to let me in, Daryl? You're acting mighty strange. These ladies have you all riled up? Gary howled with laughter as Svetlana joined in with false polite chuckle that chilled me to my core. I considered stepping aside to let my neighbor in, but hesitated as I remembered the blood and splatter decorating my walls and floor. Svetlana was 2 steps ahead of me. Actually, Gary, I was just about to leave these 2 lovebirds to themselves, Svetlana smiled. Maybe you and I could have some beers at your place. Just like that, I was left alone with Maria and a large puddle of Ksenia's blood. I considered calling the cops, but there was no way to explain it all away. Where was Ksenia's body? Where was the gun that had killed her? I could see it now. Too many questions. Too many suspicious glances thrown my way. I just wanted things to go back to normal. I considered calling the agency about Maria from Kiev, but the possibility of them sending over yet another bride was more than I could handle. Besides, what would they do with Maria? Would they send her back home? What sort of disturbing life had she come from that made her so canine? Maria mostly walks upright these days, and though she doesn't speak in any human sort of way, she lets me know what she needs through body language and growling. She can tell the barking disturbs me, so she's been trying to do less of that. Obviously, it's not the same as having a real wife, especially in the bedroom, where I have to keep her off the bed or she starts tearing up the pillows. I haven't seen Gary since that fateful day. The police came by to question Maria and me recently, but I said we hadn't seen him in weeks. Maria nodded silently, confirming my story. The whole time the cops were in my home, I was nervous they would make note of the freshly painted walls or the needlessly large welcome mat that covered most of the floor in my hallway. They seem to be just going through the motions, though. So it's been a peaceful sort of life for the most part. I did get that doorbell taken out, though. It's giving me Maria some major anxiety. I also can't stand to be around my ex-wife anymore. I mean, I haven't relished her company since the divorce, but ever since meeting Svetlana, I can't help but wonder. That uncanny physical resemblance, the strict disciplinary manner, the similar fashion sense, that slight devilish sneer Nancy sometimes flashes me through the car window when she brings the girls by for a visit. I don't know. It's probably nothing. Okay, that was a little crazy. That was a little bit messed up. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. I wonder where Svetlana went. Wasn't she supposed to marry him? Wasn't that her thing? She was the replacement bride. She just left him. She was like, I'll take this one. And she was out of there. Those are good stories, though. If you stuck around this long, feel free to drop me a like and a subscribe, and absolutely comment if you have any suggestions for stories that I can read in the future. Otherwise, I'm probably just going to read a lot of my old favorites. I have been on no sleep for a really long time, so I have a lot of stories that I think deserve to be known, and we'll just keep going with those. Thanks everyone for watching and hanging out. I will see you guys next time. Bye!